Okay, we're going to do part 4 of making an Old West gun belt out of a vegetable tan split. So, in the last video I showed how to slick up your edges, so I've done that to all the pieces. I also cut out 2 more pieces. These are for, one of these is going to go around by your buckle for the billet to go through. The other one's going to go around by the buckle and go underneath your main part, and that's for the other side for the overlap to go into. So that's 1/2 inch wide, and I just kind of cut it oversized and wrapped it around, and then just cut it at whatever length. I don't even know what length this is, honestly. It's about 6 1/4. Smaller one's a little over about 4 1/4. So, alright, let's get to putting some of this stuff together. So, first thing I want to do is attach the billet. I think I'm gonna punch my holes first for my buckle to go through. I've got those marked in 1-inch increments, 7 of them. And I'm just gonna eyeball it about to the center. My poly hammer, you don't want to use a metal one because you'll wreck your tools. And underneath, for a punch surface, I've got a poly cutting board that came with a cheap Amazon kit. And underneath that's a little scrap of leather. And underneath that is this piece of granite, or I don't think it's marble, I think it's granite from a countertop place, just a piece of scrap. You can buy them, of course, specifically for this type of thing. But this was free, so that's what I went with. I used to use one that was a sink cutout, same countertop place. Got it right here. So if you go to a place that makes countertops, if you got a place locally, just ask them for scraps. I mean, this works just as good. The square one's a little bit nicer though for our intended purpose. Okay, I gotta punch one more hole here. It's a little smaller one. If you didn't have these kind of punches, you can use your rotary punch, but I prefer for this type of thing, I prefer the other one. Okay, now we need to punch one hole. Going right. See if that'll focus. You can see a few stitch holes right there. And I got one hole in the middle. That's for another Chicago screw, just for added strength, and I like the looks of it. Okay. Now we need to poke out our holes for our thread to go into. You don't need to poke through too far here, just about 1/4 inch. Well, that's one way, just poking it through with an awl. Another way, you can buy chisels. I got a 6-prong one too. And these, if you were doing like the entire perimeter of this belt, I would be using a chisel so I could get more holes at once. But I've already got my holes pre-marked, so I could just use a 1-prong. But I think I'll finish with the awl because that's what I have on the rest of the piece. The holes will just be a little more consistent that way, but showing you the 2 different methods there. Stuff's a little thicker and harder to push through. While I'm thinking about it, another thing I did since the last video when I was slicking up the edges, this is the strip that I'm going to be using for the bullet loops. Probably be in the next video, hopefully. And I just got my piece of canvas, and I just got this kind of wet. Not soaked, but pretty damp. And I just ran it through like this several times to kind of make those fibers bond and make it a little slicker. Still, it's a rough only leather, but made it look a little better and make it function a little better. Okay, now I've got the thread I'm going to use. This came in a leather working kit or something I bought off of Amazon. Seems like pretty good quality for not a whole lot of money. Cut off a chunk of that. I'm going to be using John James harness needles here. Be a little bit tough to get threaded into there sometimes. There we go. Now what you're going to want to do, or at least what I usually do, I kind of get my ends even. Do that so they're a little easier to work with. And we're going to come in on our second hole with one. Don't worry about the other one right now. Then we're going to come through the back side and come in on the first hole. And we'll take our other needle, pull this through. I'm going to pull that kind of tight. You take your other needle from the bottom and come into the top hole. Bring that through. At this point, you got a needle on both sides. Get a hold of the bottom of the needle so your thread don't pull out. And just snug that up so they're even. Just going to work it through one needle at a time, pull that back, and we're going to go through that same hole. This is a form of a saddler stitch. There's lots of videos out there on how to do this, but you lead one into a hole. Find the hole in the other piece of leather, pull it through, pull that back like towards where you've already stitched so it gets tight. And stubborn sometimes. Well, bear with me. Usually doesn't go this bad, but of course I'm on camera, so it's gonna give me fits. Okay, that was not perfect, but it'll work. It's not wanting to find that hole, so we're gonna take our awl, hopefully here. Make the hole a little bigger. There we go. Well, usually this goes a lot better than this. You might have to not going in there very good. Okay. That's a little more like it. Usually I don't struggle this much, so probably because I'm on camera. Of course, everything goes wrong when you're on camera. Not that this is really going wrong, it's just not going as easy as it usually does. I have my holes a little too close together or something, I don't know. Well, now it's going. Once you get a little ways, it usually gets easier just because your leather is now like lined up better. Pull that through. This is more like it usually goes. It's still time consuming. After a while you get into a rhythm. I'm going to poke one more hole in this thing, just because it's a little bit uneven. Now once you get the second needle back through your last hole, just go back second to the last hole. That's going to be a little tougher to get out because now you got 2 plies of leather plus the thread that's already in there. Now I'm just going to do a square knot. Snug that up good and tight. Cut off the end, leave about 1/4 inch. I'm going to burn those ends. Okay. Something that you can do to kind of flatten out your stitch line a little. Okay. Just enlarge my hole for my Chicago screw just a little here. Now what a Chicago screw is, it's a tube like that. It's got thread on the inside. And then you've got a little tiny screw that goes into it. So all I'm doing is just putting that in. Something that I usually do, this is Leathercraft cement, and I'll put a little on a piece of scrap leather right here. I'm going to take a toothpick, just get a little bit on that, put this in first. So we get that poked through there. We'll take the toothpick with a little bit of glue on it. Don't need much, just barely a drop. Just enough to get inside of there. And tighten up your screw. And there, our belt billet is attached. Now, set this to the side. Now we gotta punch the holes that we marked one of those other videos, the Chicago screws for attaching the buckle itself. Let's see. I got this lined up and even. Get to my mark, make sure I'm centered. Give that a whack. Center this thing up again. My other mark, center it. Got my holes in that. Now, I'll take an oblong punch. Go up here for the thing that goes into the holes on the buckle. I'm drawing a blank on what that's called, the tongue of the buckle or whatever you want to call it. I don't have a big enough slot punch, so I just kind of step it out a little bit, make it a little longer. And then take your buckle, okay, now before I punch holes in the belt itself, take this and run it into my billet. Put it on the third to the last hole. Okay, I'm going to put it on, run this over here to where I would want it if I was going to wear it. And that, I guess that's fourth to the last hole, but either way, it's right in the middle of the holes, and that's where you're going to want it, because I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I actually punched 8 holes in this billet, but that doesn't matter. I was thinking it was 7, but it really doesn't matter. I don't think you'd want more than 8. That would get to looking kind of goofy. But so anyway, now that I know that's right, because you don't want to get all done and then find out that your belt's too short or too long or whatever, things like that. So now, that part done. I already marked this in the last video. I'm going to punch holes in that. Sorry about the length of this video. It's getting a little longer than I was planning on, but that stitching can take up some time. Now, these are a little bit longer Chicago screws. I got them in this pack off of Amazon. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sizes in it. The nice thing is they all take the same screw itself, so you don't have to fumble around trying to find the right screws for everything. Sometimes you got to make your holes just a little bit bigger with an awl. I always cut them a little smaller than is actually necessary, because I'd rather have them too small than too big. You don't want the end of your screw coming out of the leather and making stuff fall apart. Stuck those through so I can see them good. I'll take my toothpick again with my little dab of glue. And another one with a little dab of glue. This glue it's not going to be like Loctite where you're never going to get that screw out. You'll be able to get it out. It's going to be tough. But putting that glue in there keeps them from backing out. Because, I mean, the last thing you want, especially if you were going to sell a gun belt, is for something to malfunction like that. Or if you're wearing it out in the woods, or if you're more of a cowboy than I am and you got a horse and you're on horseback, you don't want your stuff falling apart. So put that on so it doesn't back out. Okay, so now got that, a little bit of that done. I'll try it on. And it fits me real good right in the middle of the billet. The other thing that you got to do is poke holes in the end of these. If I wasn't making the video, I would have probably thought to sew these together before I attach the actual buckle, because that would have made things a little easier, but we can do it this way too. I'm just going to slide this in there. Actually, we're going to take this out and do it the right way in the first place. Glue wasn't dry yet, but it'll still be enough in there to do what we need it to do. Now, I cut my thread extra long before, so I'm going to go in the top of one to the bottom of the other. We're going to come around, and then we're going to go back through the top, through the bottom of the other, and pull that tight, go through the top, back through the bottom again, pull it all the way through, let the needle come off of the thread. And we're going to just pull them tight. I want it to look like that when you get done. We're just going to tie that off. I'm going to do 3 overhand knots on that. Cut off the end. Get my lighter. I'll do the same thing with this other piece. Through the top, through the bottom, come back around. Tie a good knot in there. Right. Cut that off and burn the ends. Okay. We're going to take this out. Slide this on the front side. You can put our Chicago screws back through. You want your knot on the back side. Cover that and also protect it. Alright, I'm going to grab our other piece and slide that with the knot this time on the outside. Put this over. Okay. Okay. There we go. now that we got all of that done, so when it's put together, I'm going to run this into here. Just like that. That's the finished project, other than the bullet loops, which will be in another video. And I'll show you how to mark out for all of them and get the slots in. And for this belt, I want just bullet loops in the center of it. I don't want them like some of my belts. I'm right-handed, so I don't have anything from here over, and then I'll have it all the way to almost to the buckle on this side. This one I'm going to make a rig for more like for 2 guns, so I'm going to come in about, I think, 8 inches on each side. In fact, I'm going to mark that right now. You want 8 inches from your billet and 8 inches from your buckle. If you try to mark this before you put your buckle and your billet on and just go half, say you take 16 inches from each end, when you get it put together, you're going to be offset and you're going to have way more space on the buckle side, because this is about 6 inches long and that's over a foot. So that's just something else to keep in mind. If you want it to be even in the back, you need to allow for one side of your belt longer than the other one. Alright, I think I'm going to end off the video here, and I'll catch you guys in the next one whenever I get that one done, and that should be the last video unless it runs really long. But, well, probably 2 more. I'll probably show you guys how to start the bullet loops and everything, finish them off camera, and then show you the final project. And I still got to decide if I want to dye it or not. We'll see what it looks like when I get done. So, thanks for watching.